The aftermath of the controversial remarks by Chinese Ambassador Xing Haiming continues, with more criticism coming out of Seoul's top office and the ruling party. Several main opposition lawmakers, meanwhile, embarked on a trip to China for meetings with people from political and business circles. On this final day of the National Assembly's Q&A session, lawmakers remain divided over the government's handling of issues related to the socially vulnerable. New jobs again increased by more than 350,000 last month in Korea, thanks to a robust service sector. Jobs in the manufacturing industry, however, backpedaled for the fifth straight month. It's June 14th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We start with the aftermath of the controversial remarks by Chinese Ambassador Xing Haiming that continues 4 days now. Amid the ongoing diplomatic clash between Seoul and Beijing, South Korea's National Security Advisor warns there should not be any actions that go against the development of bilateral relations. Our Peun-ji brings us up-to-speed responses from the political circles.
A senior official from the presidential office has said there should not be any actions taken by Seoul or Beijing that do not improve bilateral relations, referring to the Chinese ambassador to South Korea, Xing Haiming, who last week said that it would be wrong for Seoul to bet on Beijing's defeat, criticizing South Korea's foreign policy leaning towards the U.S. This is what Cho Tae-yong, the national security advisor, told reporters while leaving Seoul for a 2-day trip to Japan.
There shouldn't be anything that goes against the healthy development of relations between South Korea and China.
The national security advisor also said that when it comes to relations with China, the Yoon administration's position remains the same, that the relationship needs to be developed in a healthy manner, based on mutual respect and common interest. As for the possible trilateral summit between leaders of South Korea, China, and Japan, another presidential official said it's up to China to make that happen, and that Seoul will not be, quote, begging the neighboring country. Speaking to South Korea's Yonhap news agency on Wednesday, the official said the summit will not take place if China does not show any kind of response. Meanwhile, 5 lawmakers from the main opposition Democratic Party are reportedly on a trip to Beijing, arranged at China's invitation. Regarding the controversial trip, the ruling Conservative Party leader Kim Ki-hyun said he hopes the lawmakers will be able to promote national dignity while in China. Peun-ji, Arirang News.
The South Korean government has filed a damages suit against North Korea over the regime's demolition of the Inter-Korean Liaison Office in 2020. Calling the demolition an illegal act, Seoul's Unification Ministry filed a lawsuit on Wednesday seeking $35 million in compensation for the loss of state assets. The legal action comes as the statute of limitation for damages to property related to the case is set to expire this coming Friday. The ministry said the suit is aimed at exercising its claims for damages before the expiration date and helping recoup the government's losses, stressing that the regime fundamentally hampered the basis of respect and trust between the two Koreas. The ministry vowed to sternly respond to Pyongyang's infringement of Seoul's property rights. On June 16, 2020, North Korea demolished the Joint Liaison Office near the border town of Kaesong in a show of anger against North Korean defectors sending anti-Pyongyang leaflets from South Korea. South Korean Defense Minister Lee Jong-seop met with U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Colin Kahl today in Seoul to discuss regional security. In their talks, Minister Lee highlighted the importance of forging robust bilateral ties through multiple channels of cooperation, including conducting tabletop exercises and expanding America's deployment of strategic assets. Undersecretary Kahl agreed and stressed the pivotal role of continual collaboration and communication in deterring potential North Korean threats. Kahl also appreciated development in regional security cooperation following recent improvement in the Seoul-Tokyo relationship. At the National Assembly, policies for the marginalized, such as those with disabilities, were among the topics brought up by lawmakers today, the last of the 3 government questioning sessions this week. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hu reports.
Rival lawmakers grilled government officials on issues directly pertaining to South Koreans' lives, and among them was the People Power Party's Kim Ye-ji.
A person with a disability myself and also a list member. I'm going to ask questions on the government's role and direction regarding policies for the disabled.
Kim asked Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, representing the government at the parliamentary session, about the Yoon administration's direction and plans for policies for the disabled.
We are working hard to increase the related budget. We are also working on expanding support for the disabled's health, care, and personal budget system. We will actively communicate with those with disabilities to carry out our assignments and develop various policy alternatives.
And as was the case in the previous 2 sessions of questioning, another hot topic was Japan's plan to release wastewater from the destroyed Fukushima nuclear power plant.
Japan has chosen the cheapest and easiest way to make up for the nuclear plant disaster. I think this will set a bad example globally. What do you think?
If it's done in a non-scientific way that harms the people around the world, there are international systems to discuss and file complaints, for example, through the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea.
Other questions asked involved the government's aftercare for those affected by the Itaewon tragedy late last year and the need for the protection of press freedom. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
President Yoon Suk-yeol and First Lady Kim Gun-hee showed their gratitude to the nation's veterans and servicemen on Wednesday by hosting them to a lunch that featured the highest level of welcoming protocols and respect. The lunch was held in guest house of the former presidential Blue House with 190 in attendance, including family members. The invited guests also included those from other service areas, represented by the father of a firefighter who died in March this year while on a rescue mission. In addition, this was the first time veterans of the first Yeonpyeong naval battle, which took place in 1999, were invited for lunch with the sitting president. In his welcoming speech, President Yoon reiterated the importance of respecting those who have served the country as a sovereign nation, saying this was the essence of a democratic country. Korea's labor market remains robust, with data for May showing notable job expansion among the elderly and in the service sector. Jobs in the manufacturing industry, however, backpedaled again. Or Lee Soo-jin explains.
South Korea's employment figures remained strong last month. Data from Statistics Korea released on Wednesday shows that there were 28.83 million people in employment last month, up more than 351,000 compared to the previous year. This is the 27th consecutive month that the nation has seen year-on-year growth in employment. Statistics Korea says May's strong figures were driven by the continued rise in in-person and outdoor activities. The employment rate of the working-age population, those aged 15 to 64, rose 0.7 percentage points year-on-year to stand at 69.9%. That's the highest figure on record. The nation's unemployment rate came to 2.7%, down 0.3 percentage points compared to the year before, and the lowest figure for the month of May since 1999. The job growth was largely driven by the 60 and above age group, which recorded 379,000 more jobs. Employment among those their 20s and below, however, fell for the 7th consecutive month. By sector, the health and welfare industry saw the most job additions with 166,000, followed by the accommodation and restaurant sectors. On the other hand, for the fifth straight month, the manufacturing industry recorded fewer jobs amid sluggish exports, but the decline was smaller than the previous month. Meanwhile, during a job task force meeting on Wednesday, the first vice finance minister announced that the government has selected more industries to focus on to boost employment.
In addition to coming up with more solutions for the 6 industries that have already been selected, we are planning to add 4 more industries that have been experiencing severe labour shortages, such as the domestic construction and shipping industries.
The government is planning to attract more workers through measures that include improving working conditions and hiring more foreign job seekers. Detailed plans for bolstering employment in the selected sectors will be announced during an emergency economic meeting in July. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
In the U.S., the latest economic data show the pace of inflation saw the smallest increase in about 2 years, raising prospects of a freeze in its interest rates by the U.S. Federal Reserve tomorrow. Moon Hae-ryun with more.
Consumer prices in the United States show the smallest annual rise in over 2 years, just ahead of the Fed's rate decision. According to the U.S. Labor Department on Tuesday local time, the country's consumer price index in May increased by 4% compared to the same month last year. This is a sharp drop compared to the on-year rise of 4.9% in April. On-year CPI figures, which measure price changes for goods and services, have been falling for the past 11 months now, and this latest figure marks the lowest annual rise since March 2021. On a monthly basis, CPI rose by just 0.1%. The slowdown in price hikes was attributed to a drop in energy prices such as gasoline and electricity, as well as smaller food price hikes. Gasoline prices reportedly dropped by 5.6%, while electricity fell for the 3rd month in a row. Food prices showed a slight increase of 0.2%, but prices of meat and fish showed a downswing, as did the price of eggs, which fell by nearly 14% on month, the sharpest drop since 1951. On the other hand, the core consumer price index, which excludes those more volatile categories, remained well above the Fed's 2% target at 5.3% in May. Core inflation was driven by surging rent and auto prices, as prices of used cars and trucks increased by 4.4% on year. US President Joe Biden called the latest data good news and continued progress, but said there was more work to do. This report comes just ahead of a meeting of US central bank officials on Wednesday to announce the latest key interest rate decision. The Fed has increased its benchmark interest rate 10 consecutive times since March 2022 in an effort to bring down inflation, and this latest data has spurred belief that the Fed will pause hikes. S&P 500 and Nasdaq stocks closed at their highest in over a year on Tuesday in anticipation of a rate hike freeze. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
CEOs from major companies in South Korea gathered today to discuss the current status and the outlook of the hydrogen energy industry. The Korea H2 Business Summit is being held for the first time in 2 years, with 17 member countries, including SK Group and Hyundai Motor Group, sharing their achievements and pledging to work to establish policies, businesses and investments in the hydrogen sector. Member companies agree to actively communicate with the government to offer their expertise when it comes to legislation, as well as set up specialized councils. Also announced was an initiative to lead the global hydrogen economy to address the various tasks needed to support the nation's hydrogen ecosystem and support investment into the industry. In other news, Ukraine is reportedly making some gains in the early stages of its counteroffensive to recapture territory. Fighting seems to intensify as Moscow strikes back. Chung Eun-ju has the latest.
With Ukraine's counteroffensive being underway for more than a week, the country is pushing forward at several points along its southern Zaporizhia and eastern Donetsk regions. Though incremental, the country is making real gains, such as liberating villages near the front line. Late on Monday, Kiev's defense ministry said 7 settlements had been liberated in the past week of fighting in Donetsk. Military analysts have suggested that the offensive so far is in its early stages and mainly confined to probing attacks to find a point of weakness on the Russian front line. The Ukrainians have yet to unleash the bulk of their reserve forces or Western-supplied vehicles. By contrast, Russian military bloggers are claiming that Ukrainian efforts to advance south of Orikhiv have been resisted. A Leopard 2 tank and 4 Bradley fighting vehicles were reportedly abandoned on Friday after a failed Ukrainian attack near the region. Russian President Vladimir Putin has also denied Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's claims of early success in Ukraine's long-anticipated counteroffensive, while admitting that Russia had lost 54 tanks in the opening assaults. In a televised meeting with military bloggers on Tuesday, Russia's president said he believed that Ukraine had lost 25% to 30% of its foreign-supplied military vehicles, including 160 tanks. He further claimed Ukraine's human losses were 10 times higher than Russia's. Meanwhile, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said his country has started taking delivery of Russian tactical nuclear weapons. He said some of the weapons are 3 times more powerful than the atomic bombs the United States dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Lukashenko said Tuesday that the nuclear weapons would be physically deployed on Belarus territory in several days. The United States, its allies, as well as China is watching the step closely. Belarus borders 3 NATO member countries, Lithuania, Latvia, and Poland. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
Appearing in court in Miami on Tuesday, former U.S. President Donald Trump pleaded not guilty to dozens of felony counts related to his mishandling of classified documents after he left the White House. Our Lee Seung-jae with more.
Facing 37 charges related to allegations that he kept hundreds of classified documents after leaving office, while also failing to return them to federal record keepers, former U.S. President Donald Trump pleaded not guilty to all the charges. And Trump's latest legal battle means he becomes the first U.S. president, either former or current, to face federal charges. Making his appearance at the Miami federal courthouse on Tuesday, Trump was read a list of charges, including willful retention of national defense information, conspiracy to obstruct justice, corruptly concealing a document or record, concealing a document in a federal investigation, and making false statements and representations. Tuesday's court appearance also marks the second time in over 2 months that the former president was arraigned on criminal charges. Earlier in April, Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records, which stemmed from a probe into payments he made to adult film star Stormy Daniels in return for keeping quiet over an alleged affair. However, this might not be the end of the 45th president's legal troubles, as U.S. Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith is also investigating efforts made by Trump and his close allies to overturn President Joe Biden's 2020 election victory. Still, a large number of Trump supporters showed up near the federal courthouse to cheer on the former president, while anti-Trump supporters were also at the scene to protest. Special Counsel Smith said last week that he would be seeking a speedy trial, which, by legal definition, mean proceedings could begin within 70 days. However, legal experts say there are few factors that could push the date back much further. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The government has begun the process of separating the subscription fee for the South Korea's main public broadcaster, the Korea Broadcasting System, or KBS, from the monthly electricity bills that all residents of South Korea receive. On Wednesday, the Korea Communications Commission approved a plan to amend the Broadcasting Act enforcement decree to accomplish this. Since 1994, the monthly electricity bill for households with TV receivers included 2,500 Korean won, or around $2, to cover the fee. The move comes as earlier this month, the presidential office sent a recommendation to the broadcasting watchdog regarding this after conducting a public debate on the collection method for the KBS fee. The results of the debate reportedly showed support for separating it from the electricity bill. Here in Seoul, an annual gathering to advance cultural interactions took place Tuesday evening at the official residence of the French ambassador to South Korea. Our Choi Soo-hyung brings us some of the highlights.
Hidden talent, the joy of sharing. The Korea Image Communication Institute held its annual Culture Communication Forum on Tuesday night. The event was held at French ambassador's residence and was attended by ambassadors and cultural leaders from countries such as Germany, Italy, and Switzerland. Philippe Lefort, the French ambassador to Korea, demonstrated his taekwondo skills. He started taekwondo when he came to Korea so that he could see the spiritual soul of the country. At the forum, he performed his top 3 favorite forms, Taeguk 7, Taeguk 8, and Kumgang.
So I've been practicing fencing, French boxing, another French not that much well-known sport, and I've been practicing also karate and today taekwondo.
Another guest was someone who had become deeply immersed in the essence of Korea's traditional pansori music and had chosen to leave behind their life in France to pursue the path of sorikgun or pansori vocalists.
I was attracted to pansori at the Korean Cultural Center in 2016. As I continue to do it, it feels like therapy to help me heal my heart.
The German ambassador played Chopin's Nocturne No. 20, which he said always gives him unbelievable moments. A magician, Edward Kwon, performed his magic tricks for the crowd. The chairman of CICI said she hopes more people can share their love of Korean culture with the world.
It is a universal wish to live a long life with a young heart. To do so, I believe it is essential to be positive, communicate well, and share with others. That is why we prepared the hidden talent today.
The CICI's annual forum aims to become a cultural stepping stone between Korea and the world. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
A low-pressure system over South Korea will keep dropping showers overnight. Inland regions, including Gangwon-do, Chungcheong-do, and Gyeongsang-do provinces, will see 5 to 40 millimeters of rainfall. Showers will continue into tomorrow evening. Unstable air will bring locally heavy downpours of 30 millimeters per hour. For Gyeongsangbuk-do province, heavier showers of 50 millimeters per hour are in the forecast. Flooding and landslides are possible for low-lying areas, so please take extra precautions beforehand. Along with the rain, violent winds will follow at times. Winds will be gusting as fast as 20 meters per second. This is strong enough to bring down signboards and break tree limbs. And despite the rain and increasing cloud coverage, UV radiation will be strong. Most regions will see UV ray index in the high to very high range. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gwangju and Daegu will be starting off at 18 degrees Celsius. Expect wide temperature gaps with highs jumping significantly. Seoul will get up to 28 degrees, Gwangju 29, Gyeongju and Busan will be reaching 26 degrees. Maximum temperatures will keep rising until early next week. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.